And I appreciate the fact that you responded positively in attending this important meeting. It is quite important to say that because Parliament is on recess, and I propose that I must steal an hour or so of your time so that we deal with the matters that are before us. The reason that I requested that this meeting be convened is that because Parliament has extended our work, the House has extended our work from the 26th of March until the 24th of June. It means we have additional 2 to 3 months to finalize the work. It is quite important to sit back, make some reflections on the visit from the Northwest Province with a view of developing a program that must first be adopted by the committee. And after this committee adopting the program, we must make sure that we inform all the people that we want them to appear before this committee. And this program must help us to do the work. Those who went to the Northwest on the oversight visit would agree that based on our own observations, preliminary observations, it is quite clear that there is still a lot of work to be done in that province, especially in respect to the work that we've already done and the interactions that we made with different stakeholders. And pertinently, in order for us to not do a rush work, we need to tighten up things and do some follow-ups and make sure that we are successful and our oversight work impacts very, very positively in bringing about the stability, the necessary stability in that province. You'd agree with me that this is an overall observation that we made. Now, for the purpose of this meeting, I propose that we need, based on what I've just explained, the fact that we have a bit of an extension, that we need to make some reflections about our observations on the oversight visit to the Northwest, so that we are able collectively pick up issues emerging from the oversight visit, identify those issues that we think need to be attended to quite appropriately, and identify the gaps in the work that we did, so that at the end of the day, we become meticulous, we become professional, and we do our work in such a way that, as I indicated, that it will impact positively to bring about stability in the Northwest. When the House extended our committee, the indication was that on the 24th of June, there will be a special debate on this intervention as we present our report. And I think it's therefore quite important for us to ensure that we do our work quite diligently. The second item, as you know, the apologies. We know the apology of Honorable Fessa, who is not part of this meeting. She submitted her apology. I indicated that the admin must check when Honorable Nita is, because she has not submitted her apology. She's the only one who is a permanent member of this committee and is not in attendance at this stage. Hopefully, she will join the meeting at a later stage. Be that as it may, honorable members, to just recap on point number 3, we visited the Northwest Province from the 14th until the 19th of March, last week Friday, when which we had a very, very comprehensive program of interacting with the stakeholders. To just summarize what we did, to just recap before I open the discussion, so that we must freely just express our views, share our own experiences, identify areas of success and areas of weakness, what we think we need to do as a committee to ensure that at the end of the day, our work is okay. Most of the members arrived on Sunday with a view of starting the work on Monday. On Monday, we met collectively as a committee. There were 7 members of the committee who attended the oversight visit to the Northwest. We started our interaction with the SCOPA, the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, in which we received a very detailed and comprehensive report from SCOPA, the issues that they were dealing with, the challenges that they were facing, and they presented to us some matters that need our follow-up. We thereafter met the Executive Council of the province, led by the Premier. In that meeting, we were joined by the administrators, who are part of the intervention in the Northwest. We received the report from the Honorable Premier of the province, Professor Job Mokoro, together with his team, the Executive Council, on the state of intervention, what they see as issues, what they see as problematic areas that need intervention, as they see as the way forward in terms of the whole process of intervention in the Northwest, even their interactions with the IMTT itself. And I must say that what we received is not very, very good, in that the relationship is very strenuous. For example, the Premier was saying to us, he didn't know what to present before us. He didn't know that the intervention has been extended. That is, the IMTT has extended its work until it will review it at the end of June. That you hear all of this through rumors and gossips over the media and all of that. And that is a point that was quite disturbing from our side. With that as it may, we did interact with the report of the Honorable Premier. On the same day, we also received a report from, we interacted with the unions who are representing different sectors and civil servants in that part of the country. If I remember well, we met SATU, we met Nehal, we met with POPCU. Those are the unions that we interacted with. That concluded the day, the first day. The second day, we split it into 2 parts. I led the team that remained in Mafike, and that Honorable Lita led the team that visited the Matlosana area. In Matlosana area, the team that was led by Honorable Lita visited the hospitals, especially the Tsepo Hospital as well as Klagsop Hospital, and they visited a school on that day but equally they interacted with the administrators as well as the officials from both the Department of Education and the Department of Health. The team that I led in Mafeking visited Bophelo Hospital, which is now called the Mafeking Provincial Hospital. That is where we spent the better part of the day. And later we did an unannounced visit to the airport, the much talked about airport, where the South African Express was involved. There we interacted with the Department of Community Safety and Transport Management. We had the possibility of viewing the place. We were briefed about the issues that obtained there. On the third day, the team in Mafeking went to Madibohopan. In Madibohopan, we interacted with the Department of Community Safety and Transport Management, as well as the Department of Education. We visited a school there, two schools actually, which were visited by the previous intervention team. And likewise, we interacted with the Department of Public Works on the bridge that was constructed 3 years ago. And quite clearly out of that, it's important to do some follow-ups. In Kanzo, they visited some schools and they interacted with the Department of Social Development on that day. The next day, on Thursday the 18th, the team from Mafeking traveled to the Dr. KK region, where we joined the team from Matosana, where we are based in JB Max municipality, with a view of interacting with the stakeholders. There, in terms of the stakeholders, we were to meet the stakeholders arranged by the district municipality, so that we hear the views of extra parliamentary bodies, NGOs, unions, youth, women organizations, and all of that. And the impression or the observation we made is that none of those organizations were invited. Instead, councillors, ward committee members, officials from the respective municipalities were the ones in attendance and were the ones who were making some inputs to the meeting. Thereafter, we concluded our visit in terms of interacting with the religious ministers as well as the traditional chiefs. In respect of the traditional leaders, we decided to postpone that meeting. Sorry, in terms of the religious ministries, we postponed that meeting precisely because there was very few people in attendance, and then we felt that it is inappropriate to meet in that sense, but we need to ensure that we meet a broader sector. But lastly, we had the possibility of interacting with the traditional chiefs from the Northwest, who shared with us their views, their impressions, what they see about the intervention. And that's how we concluded the visit. Friday, it was the departure time to the airport and to other areas when we concluded our work as the committee. That's what happened, basically, in respect of our visit to the Northwest. Now we need to discuss this, to make some reflections on the visit itself, what we experienced, what we think we need to do and do better, what we think are some outstanding tasks that needs to be followed up, who else that we think we need to meet, and based on that discussion, we should then develop a program until the 24th of June. I must in advance tender an apology that between the 12th and the 23rd of April, I will not be available because I'm a member of the Judicial Service Commission, a body that interviews judges in the country. And the last time when the JSC met was in October 2019. There's a lot of work to be done, and this session of the JSC has been extended over 2 weeks, 2 full weeks every day from 8 o'clock in the morning until very late every day to ensure that we interview the judges. I'm told that about 88 vacancies, not 88, about 36 vacancies, and there are about 88 applicants who must be interviewed over a period of 2 weeks, which means from the 12th until the 23rd of April, I'm not available. The committee might want to discuss this and say, what do they do for 2 weeks, whether we pause or whether the committee would want to proceed. If the committee feels that we need to proceed, they will do so in my absence, and I think it's okay. We will have to elect a person who will act in the meantime that I'm not available if the committee feels very strong that we must proceed because of the volume and the magnitude of the work that is before us. It will be upon the committee to decide on that. I thought perhaps someone just registered that as the chairperson of the committee that during that period I will not be available. With that in mind, honorable members, can I open the floor to you to just openly, freely make your own observations about the visit to the Northwest. And this will, I think, in my view, afford those members who didn't attend an opportunity to know what we grappled with, what happened, and what our observations were in the Northwest Province. And that will be in itself, in my view, an empowering process for those who didn't make it to the Northwest. I open the floor freely, then I'll come later to also make some inputs. Over to you, honorable members. I see Honorable Dutoy. For now, it's only Honorable Dutoy. Can you hit it, Honorable Dutoy?
Thank you, Honorable.
Okay.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, honorable members. Honorable Chair, yes, the visit to the Northwest Province and the different institutions was insightful but not surprising. It's evident from the presentations that were given by the different MECs that there exist quite a few issues within the legislature. It's evident from what the MEC of Agriculture said that she struggles to lay charges at the Hawks and is shown away, being told that she must rather follow the disciplinary route. And that's a big point of concern. I believe that the committee must definitely look into that specific matter. And then on the Department of Health, since we visited Tsepong Hospital as well as Clarksop Hospital and the emergency medical rescue centers, the Department of Health, according to the Auditor General, there's still quite a large portion of a large percentage of irregular expenditure that's taking place. That's in spite of the fact that that specific department is under administration, obviously, and there is an administrator that's responsible for that. So my question is, if the administrator can't root out corruption in this form of irregular expenditure in that department, how will it then happen? When will consequence management in that specific department start to take place? My personal view is that the administrator must be held responsible for the irregular expenditure that's taking place under his watch. Chair, and then during our visit, or at our visit at Tsepong Hospital, the CEO of the hospital, Mr. Madunsela, mentioned that gangs tried to influence the tender procedure in the hospital. Now, it's evident from video footage that was supplied during that week, or that was captured during that week, that the gang violence in the Matlusana area is at an all-time high at this stage. But my concern is that neither the CEO or the administrator of health could confirm that charges were laid against these gangs. And that's in spite of the fact that the CEO confirmed that one of the gangs actually scheduled a meeting with him to discuss these tenders that's supposed to go out. Now, I mean, if a gang schedule a meeting with the CEO on hospital premises to discuss tenders, which will obviously result in tender irregularities, and you don't inform the law enforcement agencies about that, what does it say about the administrator and the CEO of the hospital? The problem is not solved, Chair. The fact that the workings of the hospital is being disrupted by the gangs and the protest that's taking place in front of the gates of the hospital on a regular basis, that's a huge point of concern. At Clarksop Hospital, the flights, the presentation that were flighted, one of the individuals boasted that the emergency services now have two-way radios to communicate. And the administrator rightfully said that they're basically praising the fish for swimming. So it's absurd what's currently going on there. Chair, I want to know how we're going to address the stock levels in the pharmacies. They're boasting that there's a slight improvement on that side. I do not have the exact figure in front of me, but I think it's in the range of 54% or so, the stock levels in the pharmacy. And I mean, as we know, that specific hub is basically a dispensing pharmacy that's supposed to supply the clinics and the other hospitals that falls under it. And with such a low amount or quantities of drugs being available to be dispensed, obviously there will be a shortage in the distribution and supply to clinics and other areas that will impact negatively on individuals and patients. We've all learned during the COVID period that less people went to clinics and hospitals to receive medication and treatment as a result of a fear for the COVID virus itself, to get corona. And then an obvious issue is the maintenance of vehicles, ambulances, etc. A large number of them were purchased recently, but a large percentage of them are standing at the garages that needs to be repaired. And the state of our roads contribute to these vehicles not being functional. I don't want to take up too much time, Chair. I can have a chance later on. If need arises, I'll take a second bite. Thank you.
Okay. I see Honorable Raila.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chair, just before I get into the point that I wanted to raise, I'd just like to say that I do think that, noting the fact that there's work to be done in our constituencies over the next couple of months, I think that your recommendation that we take a short pause in the second half of April to allow members to focus on their individual constituencies, I would certainly support that. So yeah, just to put that out the way first. Chairperson, then my comment, look, I wasn't on the oversight trip that took place. As an alternate member, I focused more strongly on my allocated portfolio of finance, which was quite busy over that week. But Chair, I can comment about some of the matters that have come through in the media during that period. And the one that I want to particularly point out is the correspondence from the erstwhile Premier to the chair of the NCOP, complaining about the chairperson of this committee and asking for recusal. Now, the fact is that we've seen a similar request at a similar commission or a similar investigation happening recently. And it appears that people, when they're scared that they're going to be caught out, look for any excuse to discredit the committee that's got oversight over them. But Chair, I want to make the point, and I think it's important that it comes from a member of a different party. I want to make the point that this committee is multi-party. This committee is quite representative and is not following the direction of one person. Even though you are the chair, we all have our inputs, and we've all been given excellent opportunity to make our inputs and to guide proceeding. The demand from our Premier is unfounded. And I want to say that I have every confidence to say that I have never felt like I'm being pushed in any specific direction by the chair. In fact, we've been given considerable leeway by the chair to do our work effectively and properly and as we should be done. So, Chair, I'd like to, in a bit of an unprecedented manner, perhaps, voice my support for you as chair of this committee, and say that we will continue to do our work. Chair, again, mentioning that I haven't been on the Oversight Committee, I did get substantial feedback, and the feedback that I received is that the administrators themselves are actually becoming quite frustrated because of the lack of cooperation that they are getting, and also they're also feeling like they're not really totally empowered and getting support from, for example, law enforcement agencies. So I do think that is something certainly that this committee needs to consider in our deliberations going forward. The fact that the people that we've sent in there to go and do this work are feeling frustrated because they haven't been given enough tools, whether that be by the legislation or by their mandate. We would have to discuss further, but certainly that feeling was picked up apparently from a number of them.
Your line is very bad, Honorable Ryder. If you are still on the platform, maybe if you want to speak at a later stage, I will afford you to do that, but not for now. It's very, very bad. Can I give over to Honorable Sileku and followed by Honorable Zandamela and Honorable Eunice Karim?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning to the members. Ad Hoc. Firstly, let me appreciate the opportunity that you have given us to have this meeting so that we can actually reflect on what we have observed during our, let's say, 45 days in the Northwest. Firstly, Chair, I think some of the
Just a bit. Honorable Chabele, can you mute, please?
Hello?
Can you mute?
Oh, sure, sorry.
Okay. Yes, proceed, Honorable Sileku.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. Like Honorable Dutoit, we were part of the convoy that went to some of the hospitals in that we visited, and with Mamunita as well. But Chair, what is of concern for me, what I've observed is that there is two particular departments that are under Section 100B, especially the Department of Community Safety and Health. But Chair, it's been 3 years now, but still those two departments are still working in silos. Because what we actually were shared with is that there's a problem when it comes to the procurement of fleet, especially when it comes to ambulances. And there seems to be no communications amongst these two administrators. And that is something of concern that needs to be corrected. And also, Chair, what is also not acceptable is the fact that, there is this issue of gangsterism that is actually taking place in that particular province. And people do as they like, and the law enforcement agencies don't cooperate with these departments. And I don't understand what's happening in that particular province, because people do as they like. Also, Chair, you know, the fact that there are 2 hospitals that has been built and they are ready, to serve the community of the Northwest, but because of gangsters, they actually blocked the opening of these particular, services, these 2, hospitals. And this has been white elephants for the last 2 to 3 years, because of people that are known. When people want to open it, they block them, and the law enforcement agencies in that particular town just stands by, and they don't intervene, and they don't bring these people to book. And that is something that is of concern, Chair. Also, Chair, the fact that the relationship between the executive and the members of the legislature, especially the SCOPA and the administrators, I don't know how that one can be resolved, Chair, because really, if we still want to assist in that particular province and to have the same administrators doing the work that they need to do, I don't know whether they don't want, to work on their relations amongst themselves, or they are just, trying plain ignorant, amongst themselves, and they just look for their own needs. They don't consider the needs of the province. So something is of concern for me, Chair, that the executive is not embracing enough, in terms of the people that has been, given to them to assist them and try to turn things around in that particular province. And also, Chair, when we engage with the executive, one would have expected that you would have a presentation of terms of progress made, of intervention, how it's actually assisted them. But what we ended up, hearing, it was just, people complaining about MOUs, and those are issues that, you would just call, the administrator and sit down and then say, let us eye on this thing, because it's actually an impediment in making sure that I fulfill my responsibility as a member of the executive. It wouldn't require us to come all the way from Cape Town and other provinces and have a meeting with them, and then they will come and complain about MOUs. Those are the issues that they could have been ironed out. I also understand, Chair, that some of the MOUs were signed during the last administration, but one would expect, when the new MECs have been appointed, that the Premier would actually sit with all these departments and say, this is what we have agreed on. Where can we change? Because this is work in progress, but they are not doing it, Chair. And also, Chair, what is important, there are some issues that, especially when you go to talk to DSD, Department of Social Development, there were certain time frames, Chair, that were set in terms of office, rentals, that the department should actually look at finding their own office space, instead of always, renting and renting and renting. And up to this far, Chair, no progress has been made in that particular department, and it's just a blame, shifting. DSD would say no, it's public works, and public works would say no, I don't know what's happening. And contracts of lease is just renewed and renewed, and we don't know who is benefiting out of this, Chair. And that is something that we really need to zoom into it and try to find out and find all this, contract, where people are leasing. And because even, your social workers in that particular province, they don't have privacy, because they are sharing open air offices. So you cannot engage with sensitive issues when your working conditions are such. And also, Chair, the station where the ambulances are kept, when we went into those offices, Chair, you would see that it's not conducive, for people, that are in the front line and serving us, that they would actually stay in such offices, Chair. It's appalling. It's not nice. The doors, if you look in that, and those are the issues that one, you have to look at it, because we really need to look at the workspace of people that actually goes out and they service our people, and their conditions of work should actually be better than what they are currently, Chair. And also, Chair, I won't venture into any issues amongst you and your former premier, and I don't know whether you served in his cabinet at one particular time, for him, for him to have an issue with you as the chairperson of this particular ad hoc committee. And Chair, having worked with you also in the other select committee of human settlements, and I understand. I believe you focus on at the work at hand, and also what is important, Chair. We are not going to be taken or to be moved or diverted in the kind of work that we need to do for the Northwest, because we as members of this particular committee, we are independent thinkers. We can apply our mind. We look at the facts in front of us. And just because you are the chairperson does not say that you dictate to us. And Chair, when we appointed you based on your capabilities and your knowledge and also the kind of work that you have done in that particular province. So, Chair, we don't want to go into that. Those factions that you guys have, it must not affect the kind of work that we do as an ad hoc committee. And also, Chair, what was also disappointing is the fact that when it mattered most for us, I was really looking forward to engaging, with an ordinary people, on the ground, to just to hear their views in terms of the impact of this particular intervention. And I have to say, Chair, that it was very disappointing that when we attended that particular engagement, that you would hear people that used to work in the Premier's office addressing us, people that are working in the Speaker's office addressing us, a mayor that was doing the welcoming from the district that also engaging us, also complaining. And then you find even the people that are complaining about us, even their own municipalities are under Section 139. So once I ask a question, what is actually happening? Why are they actually complaining? Are they complaining because they are pushing a specific factional line, or are they genuine in their complaint? So, Chair, one issue that is of disappointment is that we did not reach the people on the ground that are affected by this Section 100 when it comes to the rendering of particular services to them. And also, Chair, one plea that was also shared with us is that they said Northwest has different districts, and then maybe we should consider going to these districts instead of just focusing on certain districts, so that we can have the feeling of everyone within the particular province, not only a feeling of a particular faction within the province that has their own views and their own political agenda, particularly on this Section 100. And also, Chair, the view from the unions also that having a problem with administrators is also worrisome, Chair. And I think the mistake that we have made as a committee was to call each and everyone, separately, because I would engage and talk about Honorable Sileku, and then, badmouth Honorable Sileku, and then when Honorable Sileku is engaged with badmouth Honorable Ryder. So I think what we need to do going forward is to bring all these parties together. If you have a complaint about a particular administrator, then that administrator must be afforded an opportunity to respond, so that we are not misled by the information that we are given or end up being confused by all these things. Because at the end of the day, what we could actually find in that particular province is that everybody wants a piece of the cake, and the cake is just that small, Chair. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. Honorable Yunus Karim.
Thank you, Chair.
You didn't say I was.
Sorry. Very quickly, I wasn't on the visit, but for reasons beyond my control, and I explained that to you, Chairperson, I would have liked to have been there. But you know, as Dennis said, was it Dennis, I think, yeah, or somebody did, I can't recall. You know, it is fairly predictable what came out of there, both because it's been covered in the media over the last period, since the intervention and before. And secondly, because we've been through this before so many times. I mean, for those of us who've been here since '94, we've been on countless, study tours. And we put a lot of effort and energy into it. And we spend large amounts of money. And Chairperson, you know, I can recall that in 1998, I think it was, I can't recall, was it? No, 2000. We visited all 9 provinces in the local government committee, now called COGTA. It was then called, I think, Provincial Affairs and Local Government. We spent, I think, a week in 3 groups. Those were big committees in those days, Comrade Chair. I think we had about 20 members in a committee at the time, fewer committees. And we published a report. We sent thousands of copies out to municipalities. We sent it to every premier and every MEC of provincial and local affairs, and what's it called, local government in the provinces. And frankly, we're still dealing with the same issues in different ways. Most of them are back. In different ways, we're still there. We're still there. So one of the things we need to do, Comrade Chair, is we need to start thinking about a relationship between energy, productivity, resources, cost, and outcomes. And instead of, now we've got an extension of 3 months, and excuse me, the comrades and colleagues who went on the actual oversight visit, I have no doubt, listening to you now and picking up other things, we will do a very good report. Even those of us who weren't, they will contribute to observations that you can make without necessarily being there. In other words, like conclusions about where to go from here. And that's the point I want to ask. You see, at some stage, Comrade Chair, you in particular, I don't think we have a word for this group, but you in particular, and us as a collective, we need to ask, what is it we're seeking to do now? And how do we get there? So we might want to say that, look, this thing is not going to be resolved overnight, neither by the IMT, nor by the ANC dealing with its internal problems, nor by us as members of parliament by the end of June or thereafter. As you know, Comrade Chair, these things are lingering and they'll continue and so on. So instead of inviting an endless, it becomes like a shopping list, we're going to invite everybody. We might want to think and be a bit modest, like parliamentarians, including me, have never been able to be, about what we can do, and ensure that instead of seeking to do 10 things, we do 5 and get some outcomes within 2 years or whatever. Instead of doing 10 things and, in 10 years, we only get 1 thing out of it. So I think, Comrade Chair, and given your considerable experience, both as a public representative and a political activist, I mean, we're in very good hands. I think you need to mull over these things and come with like a 2-page or something and say, this is what we've got over the next 3 months, like a draft program. But it's not just a program, certainly not a shopping list. It's a strat plan. What is our strategic orientation? Hence, we've done this work. We've gone on the visit as a committee, at least. Now, where do we go from here, given that we've got 3 months, and given that it's not going to be solved by the end of June? The withdrawal of the administration and the annulling of the Section 100 doesn't obviously mean that the following day things start moving in the right direction, if not before that. So I'm saying in short, let's not have a shopping list. Let's be more strategic, and let's have outcomes, practical outcomes. So that's the first part of what I wanted to raise. I don't have answers, Comrade Chair. I really don't. I just am looking at a method that you're familiar with. It's a method that we in our party have often used. agreed to in theory, but not implemented in practice. Now, on the second matter, well, that Dennis, right, of all is complimenting your chairperson. I'm getting deeply suspicious, but that's a facetious remark, obviously. So obviously, I was the one that nominated you chairperson, and the committee needs to know how it came to be. So firstly, as I understand it, when I was approached by the chief whip, and which made perfect sense to me, because many of us have been arguing, you can't see this as a financial issue. Yes, there are financial problems, there's always problems, right? It's a governance issue fundamentally. And some of us argue that even more than the state intervention is the ANC sorting our own internal problems out that are just as important, perhaps even slightly more important than what the state can do. So the reason why I nominated you was because the chief's office informed me is to hide so that people know. It wasn't because the chief whip or the political committee above, whoever decides these things with the chief whip, house chairs and whatever, like your nose or your face or your eyes or something. It was an objective decision that you are the COCTA chairperson. This is a governance issue. If you are not the COCTA chairperson, you wouldn't be chairing this meeting. You may be in it. You'll have to be in it because, well, it depends which committee. If you were chairperson of foreign affairs, you didn't have to be in it. But human settlements, well, yes. But anyway, so the first thing to stress is that, so that people don't misunderstand, is that you were chosen as the chair by the chief whip's office, and I was asked to nominate you as a relatively senior MP because you are the chairperson of COCTA, and COCTA chairpersons will continue to chair these things, as is rightly the case. Secondly, as I understand it, the issues raised by Dennis, and that seemed to have surfaced in the press, I also saw something, actually were discussed, as I understand it. But on balance, it was felt that as the chairperson of COCTA, we'd be setting a precedent in removing you, well, not you, but the chairperson, in we're setting a precedent here, I was saying, because, you know, in the last term, for very subjective reasons, the availability of chairpersons, it was a finance committee chairing it, which made no sense, actually. And especially in this case, we're not in the 100, the first part of the intervention, we're in the second part, right, which is a milder form of intervention. The third thing to say, so really, it's setting a precedent that in future, in the next province, KZN or wherever, God forbid it'll happen, yeah, but, you know, who knows? So it's setting a precedent. Thirdly, I would like to say, from my own subjective point of view, as in fact is said by others, as I know you, you're a very good chairperson. I have not seen in the committee meetings any bias. You're a very efficient, very committed, very effective chairperson. From what I can see, as others are saying, even the opposition is saying it, although some people obviously will see a conspiracy in this, right? They will feel that Dennis is not speaking from the heart. He likes you being there because then, you know, there will be some tensions with people who are your adversaries in the politics of Northwest and so on. But I don't think so. I think genuinely, I don't know the others, but as well, certainly I did. I don't think Dennis is doing that, but that's how it could be seen, comrade chairperson. So it's important for me as an ANC comrade to make clear that, you know, these were the reasons. So firstly, around the fair chairpersonship, even the opposition saying you chair the meetings very fairly. But clearly, people like myself, you know me and my big mouth, if you're not chairing the meeting fairly, I will put my hand up and say, comrade chair, that's not appropriate. So I haven't seen any bias in the way you're chairing us, right? The other thing I'm not sure about, comrade chair, since it's come up, and I think it's important you raised it, Dennis, because we need as a committee and as MPs to think about these things because they will resurface maybe some other time. In other words, if it had been the Eastern Cape, and if the chairperson is seen as belonging to one faction or group or biased in a particular way, those people could also have raised it. So it doesn't mean that because it's a Northwest-based chairperson dealing with a Northwest intervention, the issue arises only in this context. it could arise also if he was actually the chairperson of COCTA, as he in fact is, but we are dealing with the Eastern Cape. So I think we should be careful about setting precedents here. So it's not clear to me how strong the opposition is to you. From what I know, it was the former premier, but there's no names attached to it, so I don't really know. Presumably, the people who identify with the former premier might be sympathetic to his point of view. This matter is, to say finally, as I'm aware, being dealt with by the Chief Whip's office, and they're looking into it. And so clearly, I think there are some rules or norms that will emerge here for future interventions. The next thing is, obviously, there's an obligation on the chairperson to also manage his politics in the province appropriately. In other words, there's nothing wrong with this chairperson or Dennis Ryder or anybody else having a particular view within their respective parties. And it's inevitable these days. I mean, the DA itself is split, if you like, between the more social democratic types who seem to be marginalized now and the more free market types. They split between those who are more empathetic to BE and those who are dismissive of it, right? So, all parties have, if not factions, different strands. So none of us can escape. Even in the Communist Party that I am in, right, which is a smaller party, I mean, I belong to a particular strand of thinking, which is different from the strand of thinking of others. So people see me in a particular way because Marxism is a broad approach. And even if you're a Marxist-Leninist, what exactly does that mean? So in other words, it's inevitable a chairperson, unless you're not an activist, will in some other way be identified, if not a part of a faction, a particular way of thinking. I'm not part of a faction, but people always tease me about my approach to Marxism. Just to give you one example, the same could be in liberalism. I mean, there's different strands of liberalism. When Colin Eglin's, or rather called social democratic liberalism, is a far cry from, what's his fellow, Tony Leon or Helen Ziller, So in any case, what I'm trying to say is, or the fellow now, Steenhuisen, the leader of their party. I mean, he's not a Colin Eglin or a Rene Talliat, but they're all in one party. But when you see them, you sort of identify them. So we're not going to run away from the fact that a chairperson will invariably be identified in some or other way. But we would plead with the chairperson. There is a Northwest Conference coming up to manage that in a way that doesn't open the doors for criticism. And the chairperson is aware of this, and I have no doubt will actually take this into account. Finally, if it were the situation as I see it, I'm not speaking of the Chief Whip's office, as I see it, as an individual MP, I don't have a mandate to say this, and if other ANC MPs disagree, you're most free to do it. But since it's come up, and we're not going to meet for a while, and the issue may surface yet again as the politics of the Northwest becomes more complex, as it always does in each province or wherever country, and the country as a whole, when we have these elective conferences. I think finally, if there was sufficient evidence that there's a groundswell of opposition to the chairperson, I have no doubt, Comrade Chair, you yourself will step down and say, okay, maybe the whip of COCTA or somebody else in this committee should chair. I mean, that's something that I have no doubt, Comrade Chair, you will do if there was sufficient. The other complication we have since this issue comes up, I'm sorry to drag on so on, I've got 3 bullet points here, but it's spilling over because I think what is happening here needs to be addressed in a way that sets precedents so we don't come up with the situation all the time. What I'm trying to say, let me stop here, Comrade Chair. I hope I've been reasonably balanced in what I'm saying. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Honorable Zandamela. Yes.
Thanks, Chair. Now, Chairperson, what I would like to raise, I think as a committee, when we went to Northwest, we didn't meet the communities and fora, like stakeholders who might have assisted the committee to gather more information. If I can maybe make an example, like the group that we met at the airport that was supposed to be part of we all know that stakeholders were not invited for some reasons. So one of the things that we need to look at is that. And the second issue that I want to raise, Chairperson, is that the committee, if it happens that we go back to Northwest, we must pay attention to the cases referred to what we've been getting in the presentation as internal disciplinary process. Chairperson, I don't understand why it is clear when a person didn't follow processes and stolen from government, and then it should be referred to as internal.
Honorable Zandamela, if you may come closer to the mic, you
Yes, okay.
You sound very deep, and I battle to hear you well.
Is it better now? Chair?
No volume, Zandamela.
Yeah, it's better now. It's better.
Better now. Okay. Now, Chairperson, I mean, such cases, I think as I was trying to say that we need to focus on those cases. We need to have a direction. Because obviously, it is clear the issues now is with consequence management that is not effective in that province. And the third issue, Chairperson, that I want to raise as a committee, our focus now should be on the law enforcement. Chair, I've got a concern because the law enforcement in that province are being led by the provincial head of these entities. Maybe the committee, another thing that should look at is that some of these things they should be handled by national head of these entities. The next thing that I wanted to raise actually it's the last issue that now as a committee we're focusing on, and of which we not even have to focus on those things because the committee nominated the chairperson. We've got a chairperson. You know, as one of my colleagues have said that we from different political parties and independent thinkers, you know, if there were issues with the chairperson, we would have raised that long time ago. So we can't be part of when we're supposed to be reflecting on our visit, then we focus on the chairperson. We've passed that stage. And this is what normally happens in committees like this when they are set up. That, you know, when the net is closing to certain individuals, this is when you'll find people jumping around, raising irrelevant things that we are not interested in. So I would say I won't even entertain the issue of the chairperson. As a committee, we were going to raise that long time ago. Our focus, it should be on the things that I just raised, chairperson, of which it's a serious concern to me, the issue of law enforcement, and look deep into consequence management and try as soon as possible to make sure that we cover all the stakeholders as possible as we can. Thanks, Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Honorable Nchabeleng. Okay. Look, honorable members, I think what we are saying is that maybe a break for about 3 weeks is quite okay for this committee, so that members must perform other responsibilities allocated to them, whether it is constituency work, party political work, or if they are working in committees. That, yes, maybe it's okay that we we take a break for about 3 weeks until towards the end of April, where the third week of April actually, where we will come back again and do the work of the committee. Secondly, that we must develop a program that must take this committee forward until the end of June, the 24th of June, as is our last day. And that we must do exactly the same way that we did in terms of developing the first program. I think we have noted what members are saying in terms of the issues that needs to be followed up. If members remember well, we have already discussed with the IMTT issues that we need them to respond to. Now, in this instance, I think what we need to do is to first and foremost, at that time, call the IMTT, afford them the opportunity to respond to all the issues which were raised to them. For example, there were issues in the office of the Premier. We asked them questions, we have prepared them questions, we've sent questions already to them. There are issues in the health, in the way that honorable members are raising them. There are issues in agriculture, issues in education, and so on and so forth. They need to respond to those issues that we have identified. And I'm sure members are saying, based on that, we should then develop a program that will take into account the fact that they must come and report and appear before us to give responses to all those particular questions as part of our work, and at the end of the day, incorporate all those aspects into the report. I think that is very, very good. I think there is also a proposal that we must identify what is called a shop list, identify practical outcomes for this committee. What is it that we need to do exactly, and what are the measurables? At the end of the day, we need to say, this is what we set for ourselves, and this is what we have achieved, and this is the impact, because that is very important. The impact that this committee had in terms of changing the situation in the Northwest Province. I think this is quite noted, and that we need to ensure that we attend to all the areas that are outstanding. For example, make sure that when we visit the Northwest, if we are going to visit the Northwest again, we pay attention to the stakeholders, because we need to ensure that we hear the view of the people about the intervention itself. I think basically this is, broadly speaking, this is what honorable members are saying. And when we develop our program going forward, we are going to incorporate all of this into the program. Now, I propose that you must allow me to go together with administration, develop a program, and that maybe next week we should just meet for 15 minutes, decide to come and adopt the program. I feel very much comfortable when the program is adopted by the collective. We know in precision this is what we are going to do until the end of June. This is good, because once we have an adopted program by members, it means that our authorities here in Parliament would know what our program is, and they are going to appropriate the necessary resources, including the next oversight visit to the Northwest in the program. For me, that is quite important. Once we're done, we are going to convene a very, very short meeting to just look at the program, adopt it, make additions and refinements, and adopt the program. The last issue, I didn't really want to talk a lot about it, And I didn't see it coming. I never thought that we were going to discuss this in this meeting. Now that the matter was raised, I think it's quite important to just put few issues into perspective. I have a meeting, I think it's either this afternoon or tomorrow, with the chief whip and the chair of the house to discuss the letter that was sent to them. That letter was not sent to me; it was sent to them, and I have deliberately avoided responding to that particular letter. Now I don't know what motivates that letter. I'll see that letter properly and the attachment thereof and respond to the issues as such. But what are the facts? The fact is that firstly, it's well known that I'm from the Northwest Province. It's quite well known that I'm one of the senior leaders in that province. I've occupied key positions in that province. I've not served under the previous premier, SMEC or what. I served with him when he was the chairperson of the African National Congress. I was his deputy over the years. And I deny what is contained in that letter in respect of me campaigning against him, me being involved in what was happening in terms of the civil situation that was taking place in that province. I had my views, and at a particular point, I made my views known about the state of the provincial government, and I feel vindicated because at the end of the day, there is this intervention, and everybody can see that the situation is quite bad in the Northwest. Just making a reflection about this committee, I think if somebody asks me, what is the impact of this committee, I will say the major impact of this committee is that for 3 years, the law enforcement agencies have done literally nothing about cases of corruption, of mismanagement, of fraud, and all of that in the province. And the focus of this committee, correctly so, has been on ensuring that we push the law enforcement agencies to do their job. That is what we have insistently said, based on the evidence that is available. And we've done that without fear, favor, or prejudice. And maybe the impact is now felt that, yes, we now know the cases that are open. We have expressed our views with the law enforcement agencies. We expect them to expedite the process, to reinforce themselves and to do their job. And equally, as this committee, we are going to call them again. Part of the program that we are going to develop will be to call them again so that we must assess since February, March, when we interacted with them, until around May, June, what has been progress. I think this committee has got the right to know and to oversee the work of the law enforcement agency so that there is progress that is registered in that respect. And suddenly this issue is coming up. And since I became the chairperson of this committee, I've received no complaint whatsoever. I've received no dissatisfaction from either members of this committee or even people outside this committee about how I conduct myself, what I do, how I chair the meetings of this committee, how I facilitate the work of this committee. None whatsoever. It was for the first time that I received this, and I don't know actually what prompts this, but quite clearly you would see that this is just politics. I will not bring politics and what I think and how I feel about issues in this committee. I've always, at all material times, resisted from bringing my own political wishes and preferences to the work of this committee. I've done what is expected of me in the best way that I can to ensure that this committee is functional, is effective, and it is holding the executive and everybody accountable for the work that they are doing. Other than that, I will reserve my comments. I will not say anything here because I don't think that it is appropriate for me to do that. Safe to say that I will engage with the senior leaders of our house to engage on this particular matter, and I will present my case insofar as I see and I understand the politics around this particular matter. Other than that, I'm not worried because I can see that this is more political than any other thing else. But be that as it may, I will take everything that members have into account that members have raised about this particular matter here, so that at the end of the day, we do not jeopardize the work of this committee, and we do not make sure that this committee impacts quite positively in the realization of its predetermined objectives. With that, honorable members, I'm not sure whether is there any other point that you want to raise. For me, I think this is okay. We need to go and present to prepare the report. We need to go and incorporate all the issues that you have raised. We have noted all of them and ensure that as we move forward, we do our work in such a way that we will impact positively and present a proper report that will improve the situation in the Northwest Province. I'm not sure whether is there any member want to say something. I see the hand of Honorable Eunice Karim and who else? Yes. Let it be the last hand and then we close the meeting. Over to you, Honorable.
Yeah, sorry, Comrade Chair. I got cut off for about a minute or so, but I got back in. Just a practical thing. When we got the notice for the meeting, it said 10:30 to 15:30. And what it does, it disrupts us because, we have many things we do apart from, political things and NGO things and whatever, apart from our direct roles as members of the NCOP. So can we plead with the staff also? Because you see, I sent you a notice to say that from 12:15 onwards, I'll be unavailable and I'll be back at 1:15. And then at 2 o'clock, I've got to take a call for 10 minutes and so on. So, it wastes a lot of time. So I don't know where this notice came, but I saw 10:30 to 15:30. So can we please stick to the time? Like even now, it could have been foreseen that the meeting will be over within 2 hours. So it just means that we can structure our day a bit easier. That's all I'm pleading for. Otherwise, there's excellent administrative support you're getting, Chairperson. I'm not going to complain, but it does disrupt our day. Now, suddenly I sent an apology for 12:15 for nothing. Moreover, I changed something around, and now I can go back to that person and say, let's just get going earlier. That's all, a practical thing. Thank you, mate.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
No,
it's fine. It's not a big deal, but just.
Yeah, it's okay. In my anticipation, I didn't think that this meeting will last for more than 1 hour, 30 minutes, because it was just to make these reflections and take members of the committee on board. With that, honorable member, thank you very much for attending the meeting. The meeting stand adjourned. Thank you very much.